A black woman steps into a luxury car dealership with her teenage son and daughter. It's quiet, clean, polished floors, sparkling glass. But the moment they enter, eyes lock on them. Salesmen smirk. One whispers to another. No one offers help. Instead, a white manager approaches, arms crossed, fake smile fading fast. "Are you lost?" he asks loud enough for customers to hear. Within minutes, security is called. The family is escorted out. No questions, no dignity. The daughter's voice shakes as she asks why. The answer is silence. People watch. No one intervenes. Outside, the mother holds her children's hands. She does not cry. She does not shout. She simply whispers, "Let's go." What none of them knew, what not even the smug manager could guess, was that the man they just humiliated her in front of was the owner's father. And tomorrow, everything about that dealership would change. Before we continue, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Comment below. The dealership sat nestled among the manicured streets of northern Atlanta, an area known for its gated communities, country clubs, and unspoken rules. Most of the clientele wore Rolexes and spoke in quiet, clipped tones. The showroom floor was marble, its glass walls catching the morning light like a cathedral of wealth. And yet, when the black family walked in, the room shifted. Not physically, but atmospherically. Conversations hushed, brows raised. She was a retired trauma nurse, with grace in her posture and discipline in her eyes. Her son had just been awarded a full scholarship to MIT. Her daughter, a junior in high school, already had a perfect GPA. They weren't loud. They weren't flashy. They were dressed neatly, casually, Sunday quiet. The mother had promised her son they'd just look around, a reward for years of study and sacrifice. He had always loved cars. They didn't expect champagne service. Just respect, but no one came over. Not a single salesman offered a greeting. The mother cleared her throat and gently asked, "Is someone available to help us?" The question was simple, but it landed like a challenge. Two salesmen exchanged a look. One chuckled. A manager approached, his eyes scanning them like inventory. "What are we looking for today?" he asked, not curious but skeptical. The son politely answered, "I was hoping to see the new electric model. I read it has—" "Yeah," the manager cut him off. "That's a six-figure vehicle. Do you have an appointment?" The boy looked at his mother. She smiled, still soft, still calm. "We were told walk-ins were welcome." "They are, for serious buyers." There was no shouting, no threats, just slow humiliation. And then, like clockwork, security entered from the side hallway. Two men. One stood behind them, the other beside. "We're going to need you to leave," said the taller one. "Why?" the daughter asked, her voice cracking like a thin branch. "We reserve the right," the manager answered. His arms were crossed now. He wasn't hiding it. Other customers watched, some with blank expressions. One couple quietly stepped back. No one spoke up, not even the lone black salesman, who stayed near his desk, head down. The family turned to go. The mother didn't say a word as they walked out, but outside in the parking lot, the daughter pulled on her hand. "We shouldn't tell Dad." "Why?" the boy asked, his voice low. "Because he's going to be mad. And you know how he gets when people mess with Mom." The mother said nothing. She just opened the car door and waited for them to buckle in. As they drove off, the dealership faded in the rearview mirror. Inside, the staff went back to work. The laughter resumed. The next customer arrived. No one inside that building knew what kind of storm was coming, because the man they tried to humiliate through his family wasn't just wealthy. He was patient. And when patient men are disrespected, they don't shout. They buy. By nightfall, the story had made its quiet way through the halls of a very different house. It was not a mansion by design, but by necessity, large, private, and deliberate. The father of the family, a man who preferred quiet over spectacle, had spent the last 30 years building a national logistics empire from the ground up. From one truck to hundreds, from borrowed seed money to billion-dollar contracts, he had endured boardrooms that underestimated him, banks that denied him, and voices that said, "Not you." Not yet. He had won by staying quiet, staying measured. But tonight, silence wasn't enough. His wife said little. She didn't need to. He watched the footage on her phone, the footage his son had quietly recorded with a trembling hand. The jeers, the dismissal, the security escort. His daughter blinking back tears she didn't want anyone to see. He said nothing that night. He simply got up from the table and walked into his study. The next morning, before the sun finished rising, a black SUV pulled into the dealership's parking lot, then another, then 5 more. Each one identical, tinted, polished, purposeful. They parked without urgency but with absolute precision, forming a quiet perimeter around the building. Inside, the staff was just starting to sip coffee and unlock. "Doors when the tension hit. What's going on?" one salesman asked. "Is it the police?" Another joked, trying to laugh. Then the SUVs opened. Out stepped a quiet storm, the father dressed plainly in a gray overcoat and polished shoes. He was not flanked by bodyguards but by professionals, lawyers, a notary, a broker, and an assistant, holding a slim leather briefcase. At first, the dealership's general manager smiled, assuming it was some investor visit or early client tour. "Can I help you folks with—" The assistant opened the briefcase, a thick stack of signed documents. "A transfer of ownership. Purchase complete, full cash buyout." "No negotiation," the broker said softly. "Everything has been processed." The wire cleared at 5:47 a.m. The laughter died in the manager's throat. "You're joking," someone said behind him, but they weren't. The building, the lot, the brand licensing agreement, it had all changed hands in the early hours of the morning. Every employee now answered to someone else. And that someone else had just walked through the doors they refused to open the day before. The father said nothing at first. He simply walked past the manager, past the frozen salesman, past the security guard who had placed his hand on his son's shoulder. He approached the front desk, leaned down, and whispered something to the assistant. Moments later, the dealership's IT technician, also now under new employment, was ushered into the surveillance room. They pulled the footage. All of it. The entire encounter from the day before, the entry, the mocking, the dismissal, the silence of the staff. Every minute captured in high-definition clarity. They played the video back on a mounted monitor in the staff conference room. One by one, every employee was summoned to watch. No one spoke. Then the firings began, not with yelling, not with threats. Just names read aloud, folders handed over, access badges collected. All without raising a single voice. The manager pleaded. It was a misunderstanding. The father did not answer him. The security guard shifted from foot to foot. "We were just doing protocol." The father's eyes remained fixed on the screen. One salesman tried to joke, tried to charm. "We thought they were just—" "You thought wrong," the assistant interrupted. Her tone was soft, but the room froze. Outside, customers had started to arrive. Some were turned away at the doors. Others stood in the lot, watching the line of SUVs, the quiet reshuffling. Inside, the walls were still. The men who had smirked were now silent. The ones who had watched and done nothing were no longer sure of their place. No one knew exactly what was happening, but everyone knew it was irreversible. The father stood in the middle of the floor, looking out at the same lot where his wife had been forced to walk back to her car, humiliated. He didn't yell. He didn't make speeches. He just waited, because something larger was coming, something they could neither undo nor ignore. The sun rose higher, casting long shadows across the floor of the dealership. Still, the new owner said nothing. His silence was louder than any threat. The former sales manager, now stripped of title and office, stood awkwardly in front of him, hands open, voice trembling. "It was a misunderstanding," he repeated, clinging to that word like a lifeline. "We were just doing what we always do. We didn't know who they were." The father finally looked at him. "That's the problem," he said quietly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't list accusations. He just turned and walked toward the monitor, where the security footage still played in a loop. On screen, the image froze. At the moment his daughter turned back to ask, "Why?" Her face, confused and small, held in still frame. He kept his eyes on that image as he spoke again. She's 17. That moment will live in her body for the rest of her life. No one responded. The room was silent, but for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the low echo of yesterday's voices in the video. Then the front doors opened. She stepped in first, wearing the same outfit from the day before. No makeup, no statement, just calm presence. Behind her came her son. Taller today, it seemed, shoulders a little straighter. Last came the mother, same scarf, same shoes, same quiet dignity. They walked slowly. The room parted for them. No one dared meet their eyes. The daughter paused at the desk, the same desk where she had once stood ignored. She sat down in the same chair. She folded her hands. This time, no one told her to leave. Across the showroom, a few of the remaining staff lowered their heads. One woman, whose lips had curled into a smile the day before, turned away and pretended to arrange pamphlets. The mother moved gently through the floor. She stopped beside a silver electric model, sleek, quiet, powerful. She touched the handle, then stepped back. Her son stood beside her, saying nothing. He didn't need to. His eyes said enough. They were not there for revenge. They didn't come to watch anyone fall. They came to bear witness. That was the breaking point. Not when people were fired, not when power changed hands, but when the family returned unbowed, still kind, still whole. The father walked over and stood beside his wife. He didn't speak. She reached for his hand. The gesture was small, but it rippled through the room. No lawsuits. No yelling. No threats. Just the unbearable weight of grace carried by those who had every right to rage and chose not to. That moment, more than any contract or consequence, broke the spell that had long protected places like this. It was over, and nothing would go back to the way it was. They gathered in the conference room, what staff remained. No one dared speak above a whisper. Every seat was taken, but it was not a meeting. It felt more like a reckoning. The new owner entered last. He did not sit. He stood in front of the room, not behind the podium, not at the head of the table, but beside the same wall where the surveillance screen had been mounted. The image was frozen again, his daughter mid-step, her head turned, her eyes confused. He folded his hands. "My name is Everett Langston," he began softly. "Some of you may know my company. Some of you may have shipped with it. That's not important." He paused. Not for effect, but for breath, for truth, for stillness. "Yesterday, my wife came here with our children. You told them they didn't belong." Not a single voice answered. He did not raise his own. "I built my business through places just like this, delivering cars, washing floors, waiting while others were helped first. I've spent a lifetime being doubted, but I never let it change me." A few staff members shifted in their seats. The sales manager, still present by grace alone, stared down at his hands. "You judge them because of what they looked like. Because of what you assumed. They were not." He looked at no one and at everyone, "and now you work for them." There was no applause, no gasps, just the sound of understanding settling into the room like dust. Then he turned toward a quiet figure standing near the doorway, an older man, dressed in a blue button-down shirt and black slacks, the janitor. He had mopped the showroom floor for 12 years, applied 3 times to be promoted, denied each time. Everett nodded toward him. "Your new floor manager," he said a beat. Then, "Effective immediately." The old man blinked hard. His mop leaned against the wall beside him. A salesman started to clap, but Everett raised one hand. No performance, no theater. This was not a redemption arc. It was correction. He turned back to the room. "This dealership will remain, but under new rules. Respect is non-negotiable. Dignity is policy." A single staffer, a young woman who had said nothing the day before, got up and quietly walked across the room. She stood beside Everett's daughter, handed her a folded tissue, and returned to her seat. No words, just apology. The daughter unfolded the tissue slowly, as if it were something sacred. The son watched his mother lean against the wall, not tired, but grounded. Change had arrived, and not on headlines or protest signs, but through restraint, patience, and presence. A reporter from the Atlanta Tribune waited outside. She had heard whispers of the morning's events. But Everett declined to give a statement. He didn't need to, because the message had already been spoken, in silence, in stillness, in the unshakable grace of a family that refused to be moved by hate. Have you ever been treated unfairly based on how you looked, or where you came from? Tell us in the comments. Your story matters. By the end of the week, the story had spilled beyond the walls of the dealership. It started as a whisper, shared between co-workers, passed through barbershops and beauty salons, whispered in line, at the grocery store. You hear what happened at McKenna Motors? That black family they threw out? The dad bought the whole place. Then came the coverage. Atlanta Journal-Constitution ran a front-page piece. Billionaire buys. Dealership after family racially profiled. Local news aired clips of the family walking calmly through the showroom, side by side with employees who now bowed their heads in recognition, not dismissal. Social media turned it into a storm, not a scandal, a shift. Young black professionals posted stories of being followed in stores, denied test drives, ignored in lobbies. But now they had a name to cite. Everett Langston didn't yell. He bought the building. A new phrase, Langston, used when someone flips power without raising their voice. Meanwhile, former employees from the dealership began to speak. Privately at first, then publicly. One wrote in a now viral blog post, "We weren't trained to see everyone as a customer. We were trained to see black families as time wasters." No one said it out loud, but we all knew. Another admitted she had wanted to say something when the family was escorted out, but didn't. "I was afraid I'd lose my job," she said. "Now I realize staying silent was worse." A reckoning had begun. At first, the national chain that franchised the dealership tried to offer a corporate apology. They released a statement calling it a regrettable incident inconsistent with our values. But Everett refused to accept it. Quietly, he declined their offer to partner on future diversity efforts. Instead, he took a different route. He announced the launch of Langston Automotive Equity, a new initiative to fund black-owned dealerships across the South. It would support minority entrepreneurs in gaining capital, training, and property access, something long denied to them through discriminatory lending and zoning. He didn't ask for credit. He didn't stand on podiums. He let the work speak. Within a month, 5 other dealerships signed onto a pilot program focused on anti-bias hiring practices. Local realtors began offering workshops to educate businesses on the impact of profiling. One lawmaker in Fulton County proposed legislation requiring high-end retail spaces to conduct annual racial bias audits. What started as one quiet act of retaliation had become a lesson in transformation, and it didn't stop at policy. The community around the dealership began to change. People noticed which businesses took the moment seriously and which didn't. One popular cafe, previously known for polite but pointed service to black patrons, suddenly posted a hiring notice for diversity roles and began holding free resume clinics. Not out of fear, but awakening. Respect wasn't trending, it was rippling. On the dealership lot itself, the change was daily and visible. The once mostly white, mostly male staff now included black women, Latino service techs, and an openly gay sales director. Training sessions began every morning with a reading from a customer's letter, stories of being ignored or welcomed or seen. Not everyone stayed. Some walked away, saying it felt too political. Everett never stopped them, but those who remained became something different. Witnesses, and not to a scandal but to a quiet revolution led not by speeches but by presence. By a family who refused to answer hatred with anger, who instead planted something that would keep growing long after headlines faded. A reckoning had begun, not of punishment, but of clarity, and now everyone had to choose where they stood. 6 weeks later, the dealership didn't look different from the outside, but inside, it had become something else entirely. Gone were the marble counters and cold sales floors that once felt like barriers. In their place were warm earth tones, soft seating areas, and a central wall etched with a bronze plaque. Just 8 words, for those told they don't belong. Welcome. Everett didn't sign his name beneath it. He didn't have to. The plaque sat in the very spot where his wife had once stood. Humiliated, unacknowledged, yet still composed. Now, it marked the heart of something reimagined. And not just for optics. Inside, the janitor who had spent over a decade wiping down windows and emptying trash now sat behind a desk. Not just behind it, at it. He wore a tailored blazer, pressed slacks, and a name tag that read, Mr. Darnell Ford, floor manager. He had made his first sale 3 days earlier, a silver coupe to a black couple celebrating retirement. They asked for him by name, waited 40 minutes just to shake his hand, and left smiling. He didn't push the car. He listened, offered options, and thanked them for trusting him. That was it. Darnell said afterward that it felt like a lifetime's dignity being returned in one signature. The daughter, Mia, began volunteering at the dealership on weekends, greeting customers, organizing community events, and mentoring younger girls interested in engineering. She rarely talked about what happened, but everyone knew who she was, and when she smiled, it carried a quiet strength. Her brother Isaiah had already left for MIT by then, but on the day before his flight, he returned to the dealership one last time. He walked the floor, not to browse, but to witness. He stopped, in front of the desk where he'd been dismissed, ran a hand over its surface, then nodded once, to no one in particular. Their mother never accepted the formal board seat Everett offered her. I didn't walk back in to be on anyone's board, she said softly. I just wanted to stand on my own 2 feet, but every Friday she brought cookies, fresh baked, still warm, left them on the front counter without fanfare. Some staff tried to thank her. She only smiled, waved them off, and walked out. The staff had changed. Not entirely, but intentionally. New hires came through a process that focused not just on experience, but on empathy. Applicants were asked, "Tell us about a time you made someone feel seen." Every morning, the team gathered before opening, not for sales quotas, but to reflect. Sometimes a story, sometimes a quote, sometimes silence. They talked about things they never had before, how it felt to be followed in stores, to be spoken to differently, to be unseen. It wasn't mandatory, but it was honest. Customers noticed. People walked in who once wouldn't have dared. Black families, brown couples, young people who saved for years. They were greeted with eye contact, patience, and space to decide without pressure. And it wasn't just them. White customers came too, some hesitant, others curious. Many returned, saying it felt like they were buying a car from people, not just a company. Sales didn't drop. They rose because people weren't just buying vehicles. They were buying into a new way of being treated. Everett visited only once every few weeks, never for attention, just to walk the floor, shake hands, sit quietly. He rarely spoke, but everyone could feel the difference when he was there. And that feeling, that shift in atmosphere, it didn't stay trapped behind glass walls. Across the town, other businesses began rethinking their space, their service, their silence. One clothing boutique removed its members-only signage. A bakery began hiring from the local community center. A realtor started offering home buying workshops in neighborhoods they'd once overlooked. It wasn't just change. It was proof that transformation doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks in wearing yesterday's shoes, stands where it was once, turned away, and simply refuses to leave the same. 1 year later, the dealership parking lot looked no different from the others in the area. Rows of gleaming vehicles, trimmed hedges, crisp banners. But something else lingered there now, not seen but deeply felt. A young black boy stepped out of a car beside his grandfather. They walked slowly toward the entrance. The boy, maybe 11, stared through the glass doors with wide eyes. His grandfather nodded for him to go ahead. Inside, a salesman greeted them with a kind smile and open posture. Not performance, just presence. "Take your time," he said. "You're welcome here." They sat down at the same desk where, a year ago, another black child had been told he wasn't serious enough to sit. Outside, the bronze plaque caught the morning sun. "For those told they don't belong, welcome." Across the street, Everett Langston stood with his hands in his coat pockets, watching. He didn't wave. He didn't need to be seen. He had never wanted revenge. He just wanted a place where his family and others like them could stand tall. And now they did. So did the whole town, because real power doesn't need to shout. It simply walks in, holds its ground, and never lets go of grace. If this story moved you, share it with someone who believes in quiet strength and lasting change. Dignity is powerful. Respect is louder than hate.